Hey, all my Libra friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your July 2024 monthly horoscopes. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Libra, this refers to Libra rising as dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Libra sun, Libra moon, and if you have 3 or more personal planets in the sign of Libra, this is applicable to you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it is based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. The month starts off, Saturn has just gone retrograde at the end of June, and we are teeing up for Neptune to go retrograde on the 2nd. And as this is all taking place in the background, we have Mercury, the sign that rules our everyday activities, our communications, our thinking, our interactions with our neighbors, our teammates, our workmates, is in a conflict with Pluto. This is your 10th house, Cancer, and Pluto is, Aquarius is actually your 5th house of enjoyment, fun, and pleasure. Pluto is retrograding into your 4th house of home, and then it will move forward at the towards the end of the year and start its residency in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So there's a lot going on underneath the surface that is bringing up how you think about your everyday life, how you're perceived in your particular circle, your particular public eye. We've had the South Node transiting through your 1st house for quite some time. And for me, this has been a point where your personal expression and your desires and the things that are important to you get to sit a little bit at a higher priority. And it requires an egolessness to the opinions of others, or even willingness to let some things fade into the outer planets of your personal life as a result of your own individuality. Now, when I first looked at the chart of the day, I couldn't help but notice all the ones that were riddled in the planet's degrees. Mercury is at 28 degrees, which reduces down to a 1. This is very much, doubles down on what am I thinking? What am I focused on? The tense aspect to Pluto leads me to believe that there's something sitting underneath the surface that my mind is not necessarily aware of, but rather it's unconscious. And there could be a need for some freedom, a need for some personal expression that is outside of the obligations of the Cancer energy, in how, Cancer rules the mother, the home, the hearth. So there may be some conflict going on there. We also see the sun is at 10 degrees. The nodes are at 11 degrees. Neptune is at 29 degrees, about to go retrograde. So it's stationed at this very powerful spiritual point of either escape or claiming your divinity here on this earth within this earthly experience. And then Libra, we see Saturn is retrograding at 19 degrees, which is the Libra degree, and it's also reduces down to a 10. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points with 11s or 10s in them. So this is very much Spirit saying, what are you thinking about right now? Your thoughts are manifesting. And if for some reason they're manifesting in a disruptive way, that would be just to bring clarity and bring a spotlight to your repetitive thought, your default thought, the knee-jerk thought. Oftentimes, the human doesn't realize how much they're trained in fear. So here I also want to point out that on the first day of the month, we see that we have Neptune is taking a big spotlight for me, because Neptune's retrograde back into its domicile will not happen again in our lifetimes. And when it moves into Aries, it's going to really bring forth a sense of adventure and pioneering into the examination of the self, but not the self as a damaged entity, but rather a powerful entity. This is accentuated by the sextile to Pluto. Pluto again will retrograde into your fourth house and then move back into your fifth house of entertainment, self-expression, of putting you on a stage, if indeed that's something you want. And we have a sextile from Neptune to Uranus, offering a liberation and a reconciliation and a movement forward from that which I have been through the use of my skills. And we're also seeing this favorable aspect between, these Mercury and this quick, short bits of information, and then Neptune. And let me offer it this way, because I think that as the month begins, not trying to make your spiritual practices too big, using little bits of time to connect with your awareness, with your intentions, and then claiming them in. I think the shower is a great time, Neptune, water, to declare my intentions on how I want my day to roll. And as you do that, you'll start to create a momentum through a daily practice that doesn't have to be cumbersome. Let's go to the second, where we see Neptune is now gone into its retrograde. Venus is at 19 degrees. The sun is at 11 degrees. The moon is at 1 degree. The nodes are still at 11 degrees. And Saturn is still at 19. And here we see Pluto still at 1 degree. Now, Mercury's moved into Leo. So this, again, thoughts of myself and expression, thoughts of how I want to experience the joy, the fun, the laughter in my life. Libra, Leo is your 11th house of hopes and dreams. It's also part of the larger networks, like the platforms that you entertain or that you engage in on the internet. It's also thinking about the future and how, that can be the 2.0 version, as they say. And here, this would be the 2.0 version of you as an individual. And I think that this entry of Mercury into Leo is going to create a little bit of tension in as you observe your options with your eyes, you may not see an open door for your own self-expression. And this is the tension. But I think what Pluto's illuminating is there could be this could be a bit of I don't want to say a mirage, but it could be that Pluto is unearthing a deep imprint. Let me give an example. When I was little, my parents used to always say money doesn't grow on trees. And, I used to be a smart ass and say, well, it's paper, it does. And my parents just had issues with money. And so without realizing it, I grew up feeling a little bit frugal. And as I've gotten older, I've worked on that vibration of abundance and allowing abundance in. So there could be something that comes up for you that's an imprint from your childhood. It may not be about money. It may be about anything, that's important to you. But I think it's the awareness of it is not about trying to examine it, but just recognizing it so that it offers you a new thought. The sun here is at 11 degrees, making an exact square to the nodes, which is very much indicating how I'm perceived in the outside world, my vitality, my ego, my drive, my ambition is in conflict with what I have known to be in your first house of self, of partnership, of cooperation, of maybe even giving up a large part of yourself for a partnership or even your family. And now there's this stretch to let yourself individualize. And at this time, you may not, because you don't know how you'll be liberated. This half square to Uranus is saying, I don't know how this is going to happen, but Venus being in this great aspect to Saturn is all about, it's not about trying to figure out when, who, what. It's about an awareness in the moment and the willingness to continue to soldier forward. This is Mars at 17 degrees, which is the Leo degree. And this is the Leo degree that's offering you an opportunity to assert your personal preferences. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to conquer the world. Your personal preferences could be very intimate and to your individuality only. And that's important. And I think that Venus's square to Chiron is the moment of, recognition of the self versus others. And, you know, you could be inadvertently labeled or label yourself as being selfish. But from my point of view, whatever you endeavor that's closest to your heart actually fuels and feeds those that you love. And that could be something you don't necessarily recognize right away. Throughout the month, we're going to experience this opposition, not first to Mercury, then to Venus, and then to the Sun, the opposition to Pluto. So there's going to be like this focus on how you think, your self-worth and money, and your ambition and drive as an individual. So I think this is really powerful. Let's go to the new moon in Cancer, which is happening on the 5th at 3:17 a.m. Oops. And pardon me while I laugh, because 3:17 reduces down to an 11. So here's a new moon offering an opportunity to plant the seeds for new thoughts, for new ideas, for, I'm sorry, it's PM, not AM. My mistake. It's not, it's 3:47. 57. I'm thinking of the Capricorn new moon. We'll talk about that in a minute. You'll see. All right. So in our new moon, pardon me, I had the time wrong. I got ahead of myself. The new moon is at the Venusian degree, the Taurus Venusian degree. And this is really planting the seeds for reconciling your personal history, for exercising your voice, for feeling a sense of power and strength within your own talents and gifts and skills. I think that the June Capricorn full moon was illuminating fears and potential trepidations or structures that you've adhered to. It could have even brought up things about your family, your upbringing, how you perceived that, your sense of security and safety. And in doing so, it's offering you an opportunity to plant seeds for a new experience. We're still seeing the theme of the ones. The nodes are at 10 degrees now. Mars is at 19 degrees. We see Saturn and Neptune and Pluto of all at the same degree, meaning they're all still at that reducing down to a 1 or a 1. We also see that Pluto is starting and has a trine to Uranus, but it's starting a trine to Mars. Oh, goodness gracious. Hold on. This is going to become an increasingly strong energy, this growing trine to Mars, as it's going to move further and further into, I think of Mars in Taurus like going through a forest and having to really look at the ground beneath me so I don't slip or fall or trip, or there's so much foliage, and to listen to the sounds of nature to help guide me in a way that where normally I would move too quickly to get to my destination. The landscape of Taurus slows Mars down. Mars is also considered in detriment in Taurus, but I think this is giving Mars an opportunity to be a more powerful and more intentional and aware warrior, which really becomes the hero. So there is a very strong opportunity for that. Saturn is making nice aspects to the new moon and to Venus. And I think that's really about being able to not only reconcile previous experiences, but also understanding that when we are working towards something that's important to us, that the obstacles are not as they're not as icky. They're not as challenging. There's a reason for it. But when we have obstacles down a path that doesn't mean much to us, they become even more annoying. So I think that this new moon really offers favorable aspects for planting those seeds, nurturing those seeds, and nurturing my spiritual tools. I really think it's the shower, again, is a powerful time to just set an intention without having to spend a lot of time devoted to trying to quiet the mind, which I think is honestly an impossible task. All right, let's go on to the 11th, when Venus experiences her opposition to Pluto. And this will be felt for a few days before and after the 11th. And this again is going to involve, the deep imprint, the idea of like, relationships. Are my relationships serving me? Do I feel Venus is your ruling planet. So the things of luxury or feeling a sense of safety, good food, nice blankets, a comfy couch. Some other people may think those things are frivolous, but for a Venus ruled person, that's not true at all. And so there could be a push pull a little bit between, how others perceive your wants and desires and how you perceive their response to that. The growing conjunction between Mars and Uranus in Taurus is very much a polarizing event. It could either bring great upsets, or it could bring great epiphanies that send us and propel us into new dynamics. I'm a little bit challenged by Mars's square and a half to the south node and its blind side to the north node, which could bring you into some sort of defaulting energy, feeling even the opposite, not feeling confident at all. And yet I want to encourage you to persevere. Saturn's encouraging perseverance in your spiritual. I can feel it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to taste it yet. I don't need to touch it yet. I can feel it. That's the Pisces energy. And then the Saturn is putting in roots to that. It's enduring the pain of unknowingness, the pain of sitting by oneself in faith of oneself and what one wants for oneself. So I think this is going to be pretty significant throughout the month and a sort of a theme, starting first with my thoughts, now my self-worth, my comfort, my money, and pretty soon, obviously, the sun is going to come in here. But let's go to the 15th, where we're going to see an exact conjunction between Mars and Uranus. I think that this could be, again, Libra rising. Taurus is your 8th house. So that's transformation, unexpected things involving other people. I think on a world stage, we may see some unexpected and potentially violent events. The polarization is these two planets are so rebellious. They're militia. They're freedom fighters. And in that, if there's no consciousness, there could be just rebellion. But if there's consciousness and awareness, then this can be very liberating, where Mars becomes the pioneer, willing to explore new ways of looking at things, understanding that as it walked through the Taurus energy, that learning how to listen to the sounds of nature, he learned when the forest was quiet that there could potentially be a predator, and yet when it was noisy and chirping, everything was probably very peaceful. So this is something that is a metaphor for your mind. And as Mars moves into Gemini being your 9th house, it hasn't been in that sign for quite some time, 2 years. And when it was in there the last time, it spent 7 months re-examining, how I think, how I speak, how I engage, what I believe in. So this is kind of exciting because it involved Mars as a hero, not a zero. Couldn't help myself. So this is going to be a big time. And also I want to offer this. If there are people that that rub you the wrong way, or that get under your skin or create a knee-jerk reaction, I would avoid them on this day. Look at Saturn making a quincunx to Mercury and a square and a half to Venus. So this could be just a wee bit of a day where things go wonky, bonky, unexpectedly, and in a way that feels rather explosive, to be honest. So it might have a big impact, and that impact could be emotional, not necessarily physical. And on the world stage, the news, we might see some interesting things going on. I don't even want to go try to guess what that might be. Let's go on to the 20th, where we'll see Mars enter Gemini and make its exact, let me go a little later in the day, trine to Pluto. We'll go 4 p.m. I think this is really powerful because both Pluto and Mars rule Scorpio. Scorpio rules powerful amounts of money, It rules billionaires. It rules sex. It rules the fears that give other people power and control over us in a way that can be challenging. But here, this favorable aspect seems to capitalize on the conjunction between Mars and Uranus. Uranus has been in a trine with Pluto, offering liberation and awareness and that future. But now Mars is in the picture and aware of how he speaks, not only to others, but to himself. And as Mars moves closer and closer to Jupiter, we're going to see an expansion of a polarization. We could see, us, living our belief system bravely. We can also see on a world stage people fighting for their beliefs and being rather, taking no prisoners about it. So what I would do is stay out of the mix, if that is, I don't think I need to tell Libra that. They're pretty good at it in the first place, but the United States is going through an election year, and it's polarizing to say the least. And conversations like that could come up, information on the news that seems rather distressing. And I would just ride the tide and let that kind of settle itself out. I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Now let's go to this second full moon in Capricorn. The first one was at the end of June. This one is at 3:17 a.m. I've got this one right. And I have to laugh because the 3:17 reduces down to an 11. Venus is at 11 degrees. We still see the outer planets making this, number one, reducing down to ones. And then look, 29-degree full moon. It's illuminating some sort of underbelly of thought, fear, trepidation, restriction, limitation. The challenging sides of Capricorn are illuminated with this conjunction of the moon to Pluto. Could be potentially a very emotional day. It could be emotionally releasing day. And I'm not really one to release, but when I can identify something and turn it into a tool, meaning I smell that energy again, and I pause for a minute, I stop before I take action. And that's what I think Mars is learning how to do under its trine with Pluto, and with this focus here on Neptune. We see the two sextiles. There's really a strong, it's almost as if, Libra, there is a background music playing between Uranus, Saturn, and Pluto that is really unconsciously fueling a shift of some kind. A subliminal message is the universe is sending you to allow yourself to use your divine disruptions as tools for your empowerment and your awareness for co-creation. And that plays back to that South Node going through your first house. As you stand in an awareness you haven't stood in before, it could create inadvertent conflict. We see that Mercury is having a exact square with Uranus, and a lesser square with Mars. And this is an awareness of my everyday monkey mind. And how does it play out? How do I, we all have a brain that we think we run, but the brain is actually just a muscle, and it works just like your heart, your kidneys, your lungs. And without you infuse thought in between this big mechanism. And I think that old thoughts might conflict with new thoughts, or obligatory thoughts, or places where you have to deal with your everyday obligations, conflicts with your ideas of where you want to move to. And this full moon illuminates that in some way, and illuminates it in a way that I feel like it frees you. I love there's sextiles from the South Node to Venus, and from Jupiter to Venus. So this is really giving an opportunity to start to feel your sense of ease. Then we see the same sort of idea with Neptune being the focal point of this background energy that's calling forth transformation. And the moon is illuminating an emotional dynamic. And I don't think it necessarily has to be dark, but rather with Pluto at the 0 degree of Aquarius, it feels like it's an opportunity to see how things sometimes that are challenging actually are the very things that move us into a more authentic space for ourselves. So this whole month riddled with its ones, and its, divine number of thought, mastering thought is just permeating right now. And I think that as we move deeper into the Aquarian age, we're going to see that thoughts are things, and people are going to exercise that tool much more obviously in our everyday life. And those of us that are breaking ground from the old ways, hence Pluto's retrograde into Capricorn, are feeling the growing pains a little bit of it, but we'll get through it. Let's go to the 22nd, where I think at 12 o'clock, the sun has moved into Leo. And it has its opposition. Now, the first two oppositions, Mercury was a fairly quick one. Venus took a little bit longer in her opposition. And now the suns will be very quick, but very potent, both being at that 0 degree, meaning there's a new beginning, a new infusion of energy. And yet there's a push-pull at the same time, because the 0 degree of Aquarius is just starting to embrace the idea of my individuality, of my hopes, my dreams being important, my self-expression being important. So this is on the edge of your 5th house. And then the sun is moving into your 11th house, another house of hopes and dreams, the natural house of Aquarius. So this is, again, just a continuation of an awareness of now how am I allowing my drive? How am I really letting my ambition sit forward? Am I carving out time and space for my own individuality and creativity? Mars is now at a 1, so there's brave action there. All right, let's go to the 26th, when Mercury is going to move into Virgo in your 12th house. And this is an interesting energy, because this will start to bring thoughts of yesteryear, thoughts of the 12th house is the house known as the house of self-undoing, the house of the hidden, the invisible. And this could be where there's, this unconscious, again, feeling of obligation, duty, being of service to others. We see the quincunx to Pluto, something sitting underneath that doesn't quite, I can't put my finger on it. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I feel oddly, I almost feel like there could potentially be for Libra a feeling of repeating something, but you don't really know what it is because it's an emotional imprint and you aren't really aware of it. Hence the quincunx, blind spots from Neptune and Pluto focusing in on Mercury. And Mercury may be stuck in process, in that, energy of being of service to others. And then it may inadvertently be you getting up your own grill for not being perfect and being able to take care of everybody else and yourself at the same time. The square here to your individuality and your braveness through your 9th and 8th and 9th house. So that's a little bit of a day when I think that you could have, like, it's almost like, do you ever get in a bad mood and you don't really even know why you're in a bad mood? This could be a day like that, where you're just sort of feeling grumpy. Of course, you wouldn't show up because you're Libra. Libra is going to be all nicey nice. And that's why you get to carve out time for yourself so that you can replenish your nicey nice. Let's go to the last day of the month. And we're seeing a square and a half from Jupiter in Gemini, which is technically in detriment. Jupiter is furthest away from its home in Sagittarius, but it's making a square and a half to Pluto. So there's something blocking expansion, and potentially this could be conflict between the small details of life and the bigger pictures of what you want for yourself. The 9th house is a house of business and commerce and publishing and marketing and branding and many other things. But we also see an overlay of the Gemini energy here. So this is business in the community, or being, some people have the business of being mom. And there's a lot to be done there. I want to offer this too, because Mars is growing in a conjunction to Jupiter, which is going to expand things. Again, this bit of a polarizing feeling. Those that are in awareness will understand and seek wisdom through any disruptions. And those that are just working for the weekend might, have little meltdowns and they may come on again suddenly. And they may be even bigger in their expression than they've been before. And, bigger anger on the roadways or neighborhoods. And just be mindful of that so you don't put yourself in harm's way. I do think that these, at least in the United States, it feels as if there's a growing tensions, especially about our belief systems, and having it be an election year, this could potentially exasperate, or if it is exasperating it. So I would just say to, kind of put people who, trigger you on simmer, so that we don't get the heat so high that things boil over. There is that little potential. All right, my Libra friends, thank you so much. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. I'll be back in August with your monthly horoscope. Have a great July. And if you are inspired, please like, please subscribe, please share, and comment. I'll see you all in August. Have a great month.